The day in Genoa City began under heavy skies, the kind that carried both rain and secrets, as the residents braced themselves for what was sure to be another explosive series of confrontations. At crimson lights, Sharon busied herself behind the counter, her eyes shifting nervously toward the door each time it opened. She had been carrying the weight of recent events, trying to keep her family together while still battling the undertones of betrayal and confusion. Her heart sank when she spotted Nick walking in, his face lined with frustration, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. They locked eyes, and the tension between them spoke louder than words. He approached her slowly, like a man preparing for a battle he wasn't sure he wanted to fight. Sharon whispered his name, soft but wary, and Nick's jaw tightened as he finally confessed that he had overheard Victor plotting with Adam about Kane and Damien. Sharon's hand froze in midair, the coffee pot trembling slightly as she tried to absorb his words. Nick went on, his voice low, explaining that Victor's hold on Genoa City seemed to grow darker with each passing day, and he feared the damage would tear them all apart. Sharon urged him to stay calm, but deep down she knew the storm was far from over. Across town, at Newman Enterprises, Victoria stood in her office staring out the window, the city skyline a blur as she tried to steady her emotions. Her father's power plays were once again overshadowing every aspect of her life, and she wondered if the family legacy was truly worth the sacrifices. Nate entered quietly, a folder in his hands, and offered her the latest updates on the company's merger plans. But Victoria wasn't interested in business at that moment. Instead, she turned sharply and asked if he trusted her father. Nate, caught off guard, admitted that Victor had his own way of doing things but reminded her that trust was a luxury in their world. Their conversation shifted quickly when she revealed she had reason to believe Kane was back in Genoa City, operating under Damien's shadow, and that her father was hiding it. Nate's eyes widened at the revelation, and though he tried to keep his composure, it was clear the thought unsettled him. Victoria's instincts rarely failed her, and if she was right, it meant the Newman family was sitting on a powder keg waiting to explode. Meanwhile, at the Abbott mansion, Jack sat alone in the living room, nursing a glass of scotch as memories of the past weighed on him. The Abbott family had weathered countless storms, but he feared the current wave of deceit spreading through Genoa City was strong enough to drag them all under. Kyle entered suddenly, his tone urgent, declaring that Audra had been spotted in Kane's orbit again. Jack immediately set his glass down, his face pale with worry. Kyle's frustration poured out, admitting that his alliance with Audra was crumbling under the pressure and that she seemed more entangled with Kane's schemes than she let on. Jack cautioned his son not to let emotions cloud his judgment, but Kyle's patience was at its breaking point. He couldn't understand why the people in Genoa City always repeated the same mistakes: betrayal, lies, and broken trust. Jack placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, urging him to keep a cool head, but even Jack knew that their world was spiraling into chaos faster than any of them could control. Elsewhere, in the shadows of society, Kane sat at a corner table, his expression unreadable as he nursed a drink. His return to Genoa City was still whispered about in half-truths and speculation, but he reveled in the uncertainty he created. Across from him, Damien leaned in, his tone calm but commanding, reminding Kane that their plan was delicate and that one wrong move could destroy everything. Kane's eyes darkened as he muttered that he was tired of hiding and tired of playing by rules dictated by people who had always underestimated him. Damien, with a cold smile, reminded him that power wasn't given freely in Genoa City, it was taken. The two men sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared secrets settling like smoke in the air. Neither of them noticed Audra slipping quietly into the bar, her eyes sharp as she observed them from a distance, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. She knew she was walking a dangerous line between loyalty and survival, but in Genoa City, there was no safety without risk. As night began to fall, the storm outside finally broke, rain slamming against windows across town. At the Newman Ranch, Victor sat in his chair like a king surveying his empire, a glass of brandy in his hand, a sly smile playing on his lips. Nikki entered cautiously, sensing the electricity in the air, and pressed him for the truth. He dismissed her concerns at first, but she wouldn't let it go, demanding to know what role he had in Kane's sudden reappearance and what Damien truly meant to his plans. Victor's eyes glinted with that familiar combination of pride and danger as he finally admitted that every move he made was to protect their family, even if it meant working with devils. Nikki's face fell, her voice trembling as she asked if he even realized how much damage he was causing. But Victor, unwavering, raised his glass and reminded her that sometimes, the only way to win was to control the chaos rather than fight it. The air in Genoa City on Wednesday, September 17, 2025, was thick with the palpable tension of unresolved history and the sharp, immediate sting of fresh betrayals. The episode of The Young and the Restless that unfolded was a masterclass in the soap opera genre's core strengths, the intricate weaving of past and present, the elevation of quiet, character-driven moments alongside high-stakes corporate and romantic drama, and the relentless reminder that in this world, no secret remains buried forever, and no alliance is too sacred to be tested. Without the crutch of external narration or dramatic headlines, the narrative relied entirely on the power of its dialogue, performances, and meticulous pacing to guide the viewer through a day that felt like a pivotal turning point for multiple lives. The emotional core of the episode resided within the opulent, yet strangely sterile, confines of the Abbott mansion. Here, the long-simmering conflict between Jack Abbott and his wife, Diane Jenkins Abbott, reached a boiling point. The issue was, as it often is in Genoa City, one of legacy, trust, and the ghost of a man long dead, John Abbott. Jack, portrayed with a magnificent blend of weary authority and profound vulnerability, confronted Diane about her increasingly unilateral decisions regarding Jabot Collective's new flagship product line, a line she had dedicated to John's memory. The writing in these scenes was exceptionally sharp. It was not a simple, heated argument but a nuanced dissection of a marriage built on a foundation of second chances and the constant, grueling work of overcoming one's own history. Jack's accusation was not merely about business overreach but about the sanctity of his father's name. He questioned whether Diane's grand gesture was a genuine tribute or a brilliantly calculated public relations move designed to cement her own legitimacy within the Abbott dynasty, a legitimacy she has fought for years to attain. Diane's defense, delivered with a potent mix of defiance and hurt, was that her actions were born from a place of genuine love for Jack and a desire to honor the family she had fought so hard to join. The audience was left to navigate this murky emotional water, understanding both perspectives perfectly. Jack's fear that his father's memory is being commodified is valid, yet so is Diane's frustration at having her motives constantly questioned, her past forever held against her like a shield. This conflict was more than a marital spat, it was a philosophical clash over what it means to be an Abbott, a theme that has driven this family's narrative for decades. Simultaneously, the episode expertly wove this domestic tension into the high-stakes world of corporate espionage. Kyle Abbott, caught between his father and his stepmother, whose relationship with him is one of the most complex and compelling on the canvas, found himself acting as an unwilling intermediary. His scenes with Jack in the office were charged with a different energy, that of a son trying to placate a patriarch while secretly sympathizing with the ambitious vision of the woman who helped raise him. Kyle's internal conflict was written on his face in every moment. His allegiance is torn not just between two parents but between two business philosophies, Jack's more conservative, honor-bound approach and Diane's aggressive, modern, and sometimes ruthless drive for success. This corporate thread was not isolated, it was deliberately and cleverly tied to the episode's other major narrative, unfolding across town at Newman Enterprises. At Newman, the atmosphere was one of cold, simmering fury. Victoria Newman Lord, having consolidated her power but forever paranoid about its fragility, was conducting a silent, furious investigation into a suspected leak. The writing here was more subdued, relying on tense glances, clipped sentences, and the oppressive silence of a corner office that feels more like a gilded cage. Victoria's suspicion fell on a mid-level executive, and the scenes of her subtly interrogating him, under the guise of a performance review, were a testament to the show's ability to build suspense without a single raised voice or physical altercation. The threat was implied, hanging in the air between pleasantries and corporate jargon. This storyline served as a brilliant counterpoint to the emotionalism at Jabot. Where Jack and Diane's conflict was hot and personal, Victoria's was ice-cold and impersonal, a reminder that in the world of Genoa City, power is a game played with different rules depending on the boardroom one sits in. The episode's genius, however, lay in its ability to connect these seemingly disparate worlds. Through a series of carefully placed clues and conversations, it was revealed that the suspected leak at Newman Enterprises was potentially linked to the aggressive market maneuvers being orchestrated by Diane at Jabot. This was not presented through a dramatic exposition dump but through subtle implication. A cryptic phone call, a worried look from Kyle after hearing a rumor, a line of dialogue from Victoria about newly acquired intelligence that seemed to align suspiciously well with Jabot's new strategy. The narrative trusted the audience to connect these dots, creating a deeply engaging viewing experience. It suggested a shadow war between the two companies, with Diane potentially operating in a moral gray area that Jack would never sanction, thereby feeding directly back into the central marital conflict. This synergy between plotlines elevated the entire episode, making it feel like a cohesive, interconnected world where actions in one sphere have direct and immediate consequences in another. Amidst these corporate and familial battles, the episode provided necessary respite and emotional depth through its exploration of its younger characters and their romantic entanglements. The relationship between Daniel Romalotti and Lily Winters continued to be a highlight, offering a mature, grounded counterpoint to the often toxic dynamics that define the city. Their scenes together, whether discussing the challenges of co-parenting with Heather or navigating their roles at Chancellor Winters, were infused with a warmth and mutual respect that felt both earned and refreshing. Their conversation in the Crimson Lights garden was a small masterpiece of quiet writing. They spoke of their fears and hopes not with the exaggerated angst of soap opera lovers, but with the gentle vulnerability of two people who have been bruised by life and are cautiously allowing themselves to believe in happiness again. This moment of calm reflection served as the emotional anchor of the episode, a reminder of what everyone else was fighting for: connection, stability, and a peace that seems perpetually out of reach. Conversely, the episode also delved into the more turbulent waters of Adam Newman's life. Still wrestling with his own demonic reputation and his perpetual status as the family outsider, Adam was shown struggling with a moral dilemma involving Sally's Spectra. Their history, a volatile mix of intense passion and profound damage, continues to define them. In a private meeting, Sally presented Adam with a business proposal that was ethically questionable, appealing to the old Adam she once knew and, in a twisted way, loved. The scene was charged with unresolved sexual tension and shared history. Adam's internal struggle was palpable, the ghost of the man he was tempted by the opportunity, while the man he is trying to become recoiled at the cost. This storyline perfectly encapsulated Adam's eternal conflict and his place in the Genoa City ecosystem. He is forever being tempted to become the villain everyone expects him to be, and the drama lies in whether he possesses the strength to resist that gravitational pull. The technical execution of the episode was, as always, impeccable. The direction knew exactly when to hold a close-up, allowing the audience to read the minute shifts in a character's expression, the flicker of doubt in Jack's eyes, the calculated coolness in Victoria's, the raw pain in Diane's. The editing rhythmically switched between the slow, tense burns of the dramatic confrontations and the quicker, more nervous pace of the scenes involving the corporate intrigue, effectively controlling the episode's pulse. The score, used sparingly, underscored key emotional moments without manipulating them, knowing that the performances were powerful enough to carry the weight. By the episode's conclusion, no definitive resolutions were offered. Jack and Diane reached a tense, uncomfortable détente, a temporary ceasefire built on exhausted emotion rather than genuine agreement. Victoria's investigation continued, her suspicion now casting a wider net. Adam walked away from Sally's offer, but the look on his face suggested the temptation would linger, a snake coiled in his conscience. The only note of pure, unadulterated positivity came from Daniel and Lily, who ended their day in a quiet embrace, a small island of contentment in a sea of chaos. The final shot lingered on a portrait of John Abbott in the mansion, his eyes seeming to watch over the room, a silent judge of the battles being waged in his name. This was not an episode about explosive reveals or shocking deaths, it was an episode about consequences. It was about the weight of the past on the present, the high cost of ambition, the fragile nature of trust, and the quiet, enduring hope for redemption that keeps every character, no matter how flawed, moving forward. It was a meticulously crafted, beautifully performed chapter in an ongoing saga, proving that the most powerful drama often lies not in the explosion itself, but in the careful laying of the fuse.